When you first log into Gorilla, this is what your dashboard will look like. Let's set about creating a novel task. First we go into our projects and we create a project folder. This is going to be a text two-way forced choice, so that's what I'll name it for now. Inside here I'm going to create my task. So this is the task structures page, and this is where I usually start with building a task. First of all, I tend to create the displays, so there are going to be some instructions. Then there is going to be the task itself. And finally, I'm going to have the debrief screen. I'm going to use a rich text template for my instructions, and I'll do the same for the debrief. And in the task, I'm going to put in a fixation and a blank screen, which I will configure from scratch. Let's do the easy bits first. Let's write our instructions. I'll make this static content, it doesn't change between users. Instructions. This little hash sign turns this into a heading. Say whether the and I can also configure the button text. If you don't configure the button text, it will say next by default. And while I'm at it, I'll configure the debrief screen. And again, in Markdown you can make things bold by putting asterisks around them. And because when participants get to the end, I like the data to come through saying finished, I put an automatic timeout on the last screen. So the instructions are done. Let's configure our fixation. I want to show the fixation cross for 200 milliseconds, and I'll put a white space of 100 milliseconds on either side. So now there's just sort of the guts of our tasks that we need to create from scratch. So what I want to do is I want to show some text. There you go. Now there are lots of zone types you could configure it as. Text, response button, rating scales, free response text for free recall tasks, audio, video, change blindness template. All sorts of different zones, but today we're going to fix on two simple ones, text and response button text. That will do for where I'm going to show the text, and then I'm also going to need some response buttons. Maybe 45 to 15. 60 to 70 should be enough. 60, 70, 55. Okay. And then I need to configure what these are. I want these to be response buttons with text on them. Now, as soon as that one hasn't been configured, text. There you go. Now, as soon as you've got response buttons, we need to tell Gorilla how to treat an answer. what I want to happen is once my participant has answered, I want it to automatically go on to the next trial. So first answer recorded only. Sudden death means first answer recorded only, and I've set that to 1, so that makes that true. So it's only going to record the first answer. We'll come back to these other settings in a bit. Next thing I need to do is to say where the content for these are, because these are going to change trial by trial. So they're going to come from a spreadsheet, and this is going to be the animal, and this is going to be button left. Oh, actually these are going to be static. It's going to be the same on every trial. There's going to be, it's a mammal, and a non-mammal. So now the task structure is configured, the next thing we need to do is set up the spreadsheet. Now if you notice here in the task structure, we've said that the animal information is going to be populated by a spreadsheet, and when we look at the spreadsheet, that's been, a column has been pre-created. So when we configured this text widget, this field will be set by the value in the spreadsheet in this column, the column named animal. So for each trial, we're going to want to have a name of an animal in here. Let's download the spreadsheet so that we benefit from the template. Whenever you save it, you want to save it as a CSV file. Now, it's the spreadsheet that drives the task. So we're going to have to tell Gorilla what to display. The first thing we want to display is the instructions, and then we want the task. Let's have 6 trials, and finally we want the debrief screen. Now in terms of which animals to present, let's have an easy one, dog, a tricky one, dolphin, and these are all our mammals, and then we can have a snake, whale shark, and an eagle. And then the final thing we want to do is we want to make sure that these trials are shown in a random order. So we put them all into the same block. Now finally, we need to upload the spreadsheet, and we can see all the information here. So let's preview our task. Say whether the animal shown is a mammal or not a mammal using the buttons provided. Dolphin, mammal, eagle, non-mammal, snake, non-mammal, dog, mammal. Now at any point when you're going through the trial, you can just return to the configuration by using this little widget at the bottom. Now one of the things I felt was that the text of my instructions was slightly too wide, so I'd want to sort of bring that in a little bit. So now the text will only be displayed in this area. And I also thought that the fixation and the text weren't brilliantly lined up. So let's line those up as well. So if I put that to 50 and 30, and then over here, these are also on 50 and 30. Now the fixation and this text will line up. Okay, does that look a bit better? Let's have a look. Better instructions. That's what. So let's have a look at the metrics we've created here. Now we haven't put any scoring in. We're seeing that we've got 1 attempt on each of these, but we haven't, the scoring's not happening because we haven't told Gorilla what the right answer is. So let's see if we can fix that. If a response's value matches, and we're going to have to provide the answer in a spreadsheet because it changes trial by trial, answer, it represents the correct answer. Let's go back to our spreadsheet. We now have a column called answer, and the correct answer here is mammal. So those are through now. Let's have a go. And here you go. You can see that for each of our response buttons, we have an answer, and I got them all correct. Oh, I should have got some incorrect. Let's do that again. So here I got some correct and some incorrect.